Go global right now, and we head over to Uganda, where security agencies deployed heavily in some parts of Kampala in anticipation of possible demonstrations. However, for the business side, traders in downtown Kampala opened their shops and it was business as usual. Here is a report from NBS Uganda.
This morning, the streets of Kampala became the stage for bold protests led by youth, commonly known as Gen Z. Dressed in black as a symbol of resistance and unity, the group marched with a singular message calling for transparency and accountability in the face of rampant corruption. The demonstrators aimed to reach Parliament to deliver their demands. However, they were met with a heavy police presence that had been strategically deployed across major junctions in the city to intercept their progress. Many protesters attempted to stand their ground, voicing their frustrations over the misuse of public funds and calling for the Speaker's resignation.
Anita must resign! Anita must resign! We are fighting corruption! We are not fighting security! We are fighting corruption! We are not fighting security! We are fighting corruption!
In response, the police, supported by other security agencies, moved in to disperse the crowd. Despite their attempt to resist arrest, at least more than 10 individuals were detained and taken into custody.
You guys, you cannot take me, I don't know. Musata! Anita must resign, man. We are fighting corruption and you guys, you are just fighting one way.
What have I done? I'm just moving up, going up.
The police have justified their actions, citing the need to maintain public order.
Alrighty, just got a snippet of it there. Technical challenges with that. We'll replay that later. But this is what is headlining the front page of the Daily Monitor today. Corruption shields. As you can see it, we've heard from the protesters, we're fighting corruption and they are taking none of it, as it were. And you can see the security officers here condoning off the presence of Parliament yesterday. A number of demonstrators act true to their call to march to Parliament against unbearable corruption. But find the capital, as had been anticipated, packed with a cocktail of armed to the teeth security operatives. As you saw it, at least 50 are arrested, charged in courts, spread between the hills and remanded. And that's the story that you want to follow inside the Daily Monitor 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12 and 14 of today's publication. And we want to hear what President Yoweri Museveni had actually given as a stern warning as well in light of yesterday's protest in Uganda.
Now when you hear people talking of demonstrations, when you demonstrate in a place like Kampala, people are sitting on the roadside. They are sitting on the roadside. When I pass by there, they have got their chairs on the roadside. Are you going to step in people's products or trample their chairs, their furniture? You are playing. Do not have such ideas in your head. If you have got some good ideas, there was a time when Nakarema some time ago organized us, and on a weekend, on a Sunday when there was nobody on the road, we walked to Kororo and we were talking about corruption. So if you want, contact Nakarema on a day when there is no Sunday, there's no traffic here in the center. At least we can go to Kororo and talk nicely about whatever we want to talk about. But do not bring, don't be tempted to bring chaos, step on people's products on the road.
All right, of course, he said, you don't know what you're playing with fire. That is also a new reality in Uganda. Let me just pick up on this with Dr. Hassan Kanenje. It's a new reality in Uganda. And we know how also Museveni came to power, from the military and where he is right now. And he says you should borrow from macadamia, right? On how you can hold a peaceful protest. Maybe if history will bear us down that as well, that particular road, you can tell us if you're privy to macadamia.
Yeah, that you should go on a day when there is no traffic in Uganda, where people don't have their wares along the roadsides, and then protest. And I think the only time that happens is maybe Sunday evening. And still you're going to find them selling, roast chicken by the roadside, even on that day. So, essentially what he's saying is there's no room for you to protest. President Museveni, who is an elder statesman, has been around for a while. And it's true he got Uganda out of the troubles and many, many years of conflict and dysfunction. And from that fight also emerged Paul Kagame, who's gone, can say is a son of or a protege of Museveni, but he's done a great deal in trying to transform Rwanda, on the other hand. President Museveni right now should also worry about legacy. And one of, I think, the statements made once by Dr. Martin Luther King, talking about the beautiful thing about rights in America is the right to protest for that right. Mm-hmm. And it is the right to protest for your rights is a fundamental aspect of all democracies. The moment we suppress the ability for people to protest peacefully, that is when they start organizing violently. Mm-hmm. And when they organize violently, the moment it explodes, a lot of times it's going to be beyond control. Now, we understand that President Museveni came through power using the barrel of a gun. And so, as Gaddafi once mentioned while on his visit to Uganda, he said revolutionaries don't leave power. They're supposed to die in office. I will not advise President Museveni, considering how much he has done for Uganda, to actually seek to die in office. It's not going to be a good thing for him. Uganda has a larger population of young people, making the percentage of total population of Uganda than actually Kenya. Has a higher birth rate, almost twice as much as Kenya, which most likely is going to mean they're going to have even more young people in the years to come. Kenya used to be more than 10, 15 million people more than Uganda. Today, it's probably around 5. That's the rate at which Uganda has been growing population. And I think it's about time that President Museveni opens up certain room to allow peaceful engagement and civic activism that, of course, is not violent, because where you want to go is to leave people with no choice but to think that the violent path probably is going to be the only path you can be able to listen to, because that destabilizes governments, that threatens the national securities of the countries. And for those of us who live in Kenya, we will not want to see Uganda go down the path it had gone through before in the 70s and 80s. We would like a more stable Uganda. And so I think it's also about time Museveni realized he's leading a different country. It's not the country he founded. There's a different sheriff in town, but also there's a fundamental problem when it comes to the youth. The youth, it is IGAT, early warning, center. We came up with a study in which I was part of, in terms of facilitating a workshop that developed that product that pointed out the youth as one of the biggest, actually number one threat facing the IGAT countries. And that if it's not managed properly, it's a time bomb. And right now we're actually seeing that. And perhaps now we should start actually channeling our energies to how can we manage the problem of the youth, especially who are employed, they're hapless and they're hopeless right now, in the wake of the perceptions that our authorities and our governments in the region have not just been corrupt or incompetent, but have been insensitive to the desires and aspirations of the young people. That is what President Museveni needs to come to terms with and be able to respond to it instead of putting his head in the sand. And I don't mean to offend him. I'm just trying to state something which is a fact.
Well, we have Speaker Anita Among. We've just listen to the Gen Zs there. This has been the rallying call that they want her gone. And she's been in the headlines since January this year. And people but they've listed some of the things that they have against her. Amongst them, she has used sanctions. That was saying that the Parliament Speaker Anita Among was sanctioned due to involvement in significant corruption tied to her leadership. And she's become the poster child of corruption in Uganda. It's not even the executive, it's actually the Speaker of the National Assembly. And they're saying that Lieutenant General here, Peter Elwood, a former Deputy Chief of Uganda's military, was sanctioned over extrajudicial killings committed by government troops. 3 former government ministers recently implicated the theft of roofing sheets that were not distributed to members of an impoverished community. Were also sanctioned among a senior member of Uganda's ruling party and an ally of President Yoweri Museveni has been under the spotlight recently over the source of her wealth, as well as allegations relating to the misuse of parliamentary resources. The United Kingdom announced sanctions against her last month, citing corruption. Probe into, of course, undeclared UK property at the center of an ongoing probe ordered by the president is whether Among owns property in the UK that she did not declare to authorities. And of course, the list goes on and on and on and on. And why is she being shielded? That's a problem question.
Well, I love the title.
The title?
Yeah, I love it.
The Corruption Shield.
Corruption Shield.
Yeah.
And just because it shows that the elite across the continent are using the military and using the forces to shield themselves from censor and also from action for their corrupt ways. So that's what I interpret about this beautiful, beautiful heading. And I think you might find it used in a book as a title of a book.
Corruption Shield.
Corruption Shield.
Yes.
But why corruption? Before we even talk about the shield, Dr. Nenje had talked about the IGAD research, and research is now widespread on the youth. And if you look at people day to day, one of the headlines is why Kenya's population is a ticking time bomb.
Yes.
That's a headline.
There.
And again, what is it that we are going through? Because when you find Raila Odinga and his troops running to get seats from Ruto's government, those are all the tricks which have no place in this order. Because the question is different. It's I like sometimes having humor in very difficult situations like this ones, where my student, I had asked a student to critically access, analyze Hosea, Prophet Hosea. And the dumb student had not done any work on Hosea. So very brilliant, said, far be it from me to criticize a prophet of God. I will instead write about King David. And he went on to write a very beautiful essay on King David, but that's not what was asked for. That's what I find opposition. You're doing a good job, but on what you are not asked to do. The work you are asked to do here is to guard corruption, to guard against misuse of resources, and so on. So, so the case of Uganda is not very different from the case of Kenya. The case of Kenya is not very different from the case in Senegal. The case in Senegal is not very different from the case in Niger. It is the circumstances of each nation where you find, the new generation, because it's the young generation, the millennials and the Gen Zs, that are up in arms across the continent. And they're doing this because they see themselves as the generation that is likely to lose. And when you have no external enemy to blame, you can no longer say it is colonialism. You can no longer say it is slavery and slave trade. You can no longer say it's neo-colonialism because we are capable of dealing with that neo-colonialism today. I mean, if that is the case, then the young people are worried about their increasing numbers, the youth bulge. and the ongoing corruption and other mismanagement of national resources, and shielded by the military, shielded by the police, shielded by other forces. Now, in West Africa, what do you find? The young soldiers have found that they are the final saviors to their nations. So in Niger, Benin, Chad, and wherever, Burkina Faso, they have taken over the government to reform their societies. And some are doing well, others may not be doing well, but they are making steps towards moralizing their social order. In Senegal, which is the most intellectual of the countries of West Africa and possibly the most intellectual within the French-speaking world, they have not gone that way of the military. They have gone back to their own democracy, and they have voted in people who speak like them, the young people. That's their reaction. Here in Kenya, we are used to generations and generations of young people from the Mau Mau time, the Dedan Kimathis, at his 29 years, or General Mathenge, again 29, General Kago in his 30 years. They rise up against the order. The James Orengos and others in their late 30s and so on are in the streets. I mean, as early as their 20s are in their streets. This James Orengo you see here, he has been there. Anyang Nyongo, you know, Mukaru, Maina Kinyate and others have been in the streets as young people fighting. So the Gen Zs have taken this position. So what you find in Kenya, it's easier because we have a tradition of doing this, going to the streets from Sabasaba those years to date. So it will be very difficult for President Ruto to make the same utterances that President Museveni is so carelessly making here in the media. One would expect better from Museveni because he's a victim. He himself has been a victim. His childhood was stolen.
Yes.
Museveni's childhood was stolen. He didn't live like a normal child because of the order in which he inherited. And he chose to liberate his country from the same. So ironically, I think it's the curse of Africa. You get to power and absolute power corrupts you, and at some stage corrupts you absolutely. So what the kind of statements he's making, rather than listen to the young people and answer them in the language he himself would have liked to be answered as a revolutionary in Tanzania, as a revolutionary in walking the streets of Nairobi, you know, to see his friends and so on. One would have expected better from him. And more so to understand the dimensions that this African revolution in the 21st century is taking place. Because he should not have been the kind of a person to find himself against the handwinds of a continental revolution to empower the people that he has been fighting for. So for me, it's very painful to find Museveni in that particular situation. I would understand the others, but I cannot understand Museveni.
Isn't it the narrative of, just allegorically speaking, that you're using analog solutions to try and have a prime solutions to digital problems as it is. So this is the departure, you know, from the old political order to the new, you know, emergence of a new political order from, you know, the people's power, right?
Yeah, the ancient regimes in Africa, if such a concept is permitted, is still struggling to understand the current situation that we are in, Dibal. You have asked the question, why is the Speaker Anita not going? The answer is just simple. You know, she is actually the front of corruption in Uganda. She is the face of corruption in Uganda. And Museveni is using her essentially to control the other arm of government, which is the legislature. You have a friendly speaker, equip her with all that she needs to be able to have the power to control a potential troublemaker institution, which is Parliament. You have seen that the Ugandan parliament is very vibrant. If you look at their debates, in fact, there are MPs there who do their thing very well in caricaturing Museveni and his modus operandi of governance in Uganda. So this poor lady has this unpleasant role of being the face of corruption. In the continent, every regime has individuals who carry their sins, by the way. Whether you are talking about the Moi administration in Kenya, for example, where in the provincial commissioner, the PS Ezekiel Yugi and the politician Nicholas B. Wood were actually the individuals to carry the sins of the regime. And they were equipped for that function. Give them access to protection, that is the shield of corruption that we are talking about. Give them access to state legacy so that they can do the job well. And these individuals are normally let go. If you read the political history of the contemporary political history of the continent, are normally let go when they outlive their usefulness. If you look at when both Yugi and Honorable Biwot outlive their usefulness of being a front of corruption, of being the protector of the regime, of being the people to carry the sins of the regime, not the big man, when their usefulness, when they outlive their usefulness, Moi let them go. So Anita will be let go once she has done the job very well and outlived their usefulness. That's the first dimension. The other one is the youth of Uganda. People are saying they have copied from Kenya. Not necessarily, actually, and Professor Kawanja has alluded to it.
They've been inspired by the Gen Z. I think that's the right word.
Not
really copy, yes.
Because the problems in Uganda, the problems in Gambia, the problems in Senegal are the same problems that we are experiencing in this continent. That's why what many people call the youth demographic dividend that the continent has, it could easily be a force for good or a force for evil if we don't handle it properly. That's what you are seeing in much of the global south. You had what happened in Bangladesh, in South Asia. The youth rose up and went out of their way to demand for meritocracy and access to education. And many more countries are going to follow in this continent. The situation in Rwanda, which is now the celebrated island of development in Africa, things will not be that rosy very soon. The youth will rise up. So this is a continental phenomena where the young people are saying enough is enough to misgovernance and misappropriation of public resources. President Museveni, as my last point, is breathing fire. And he's saying, try me. They will try him. They have already tried him. We will see more. I understand where, President Museveni is coming from. He is actually the very last, just besides President Kagame of Rwanda, is the very last of the old African strongmen still standing. He is under this delusion of being invincible, founding father of modern Uganda. I'm sure the Ugandans will be singing Tawala Uganda, Museveni. They have these notions of Uganda cannot be without me. You have heard President Kagame saying, I want to go, but the people don't want me to go. What a lie. He is the father of the nation. I could imagine, like we were in the days of Moi, he's soldier number one, farmer number one, and teacher number one. But if I were Museveni, you need to know the old African saying that a good dancer knows when to leave the stage.
Yes.
Staying too long, you will spoil the dance.
Right.
He has already spoiled the dance
in
the Pearl of Africa.
All right. Let's just leave it at that as well. And of course, you've seen there an inset of the times with Biden quitting the race. As it is right now, U.S. President bows to pressure and Decay's election campaign. This is what is on the front page of the Time magazine. As you can see it, that is the Times actually, daily there. He backs Kamala Harris to fight on Trump against Trump. And we can see also the Guardian, Biden quits race. US president said pulling out of election in best interest of party. Democrats endorses Vice President Kamala Harris to take his place. And Harris close to sealing nomination as Democratic grandees add support, of course, to that has happened so far. This was yesterday's publication of the Financial Times. And just to go back a bit, we need to show you as well the attack on Trump. Will he come back stronger? That is what the week is asking here. Will Trump come back stronger? It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Just slow internet as well. There you can see the attack on Trump. Will he come back stronger? And this is how the security agencies were trying to shield Trump and save him from what was happening there. Bloodshed, the week, an assassination attempt to on Trump's test a divided nation. And I will show you also a very interesting article from Foreign Affairs as well in regard to Kenya's, of course, relation with the US as well. But here is Donald Trump's, of course, speech during the RNC, that is the Republican National Convention. Let's just listen in to what he had to say.
They have a missile defense system. 342 missiles were shot into Israel, and only one got through a little bit. It was badly wounded. It fell to the ground, but most of them are. And Ronald Reagan wanted this many years ago, but we really didn't have the technology many years ago. Remember, they called it Starship, spaceship, anything to mock him. But he was a very good president, very, very good. But now we have unbelievable technology. And why should other countries have this and we don't? No, we're going to build an iron dome over our country, and we're going to be sure that nothing can come and harm our people. And again, from an economic development standpoint, we're going to make it all right here. No more sending it out to other countries in order to help. It's America first. America first. We will unleash the power of American innovation. And as we do, we will soon be on the verge of finding the cures to cancer, Alzheimer's disease, and many other diseases. We're going to get to the bottom of it. You remember this gentleman that I don't want to mention other than one time I had to, because when you say the 10 worst, I had to do it. I didn't want anybody to be confused. But this man said, we're going to find the cure to cancer. Nothing happened. We're going to get to the cure for cancer and Alzheimer's and so many other things. We're so close to doing something great. But we need a leader that will let it be done. We will not have men playing in women's sports. That will end immediately. And we will restore and renovate our nation's once great cities, making them safe, clean, and beautiful again. And that includes our nation's capital, which is a horrible killing field. So many things. They leave from Wisconsin, they go to look at the Washington Monument, they end up getting stabbed, killed, or shot. We will be very soon very proud of our capital, again, Washington, D.C.
Very interesting article there in the Foreign Affairs as well. This is Michelle Gavin. America's dilemma in Kenya, Washington aired in embracing Ruto, but now must double down on helping him succeed. And she is a senior fellow of Africa Studies at the Council of Foreign Relations. She was senior Africa director at the National Security Council from 2009 to 2011. And U.S. ambassador to Botswana from 2011 to 2014. And she says in this article, in June, Kenyans took to the streets to oppose government proposals to hike taxes. In doing so, they were also airing their bitter disappointment with President William Ruto, who swept into power 2 years ago after tight electoral victory. Ruto had promised to lower the cost of living and increase job opportunities for young Kenyans. Instead, Kenyans watched as he pivoted outward, positioning himself as a mediator in regional conflicts and giving major speeches at international forums and allying with the United States. US President Joe Biden's administration made a show of embracing Ruto, inviting him for a rare state visit in May. US and Kenya officials stressed the fact that Ruto was the first African leader to receive such a welcome since Ghana's President John Kufuor in 2008, and the first Kenyan leader to make a state visit to Washington in more than 2 decades. The US government announced that it will designate Kenya as the United States' first major non-NATO ally in sub-Saharan Africa, a designation that puts it in company with the likes of Australia, Japan. Goes on. Let me try and just put it in a single page there and zoom it for us. Where was I? Right, let me just go back a bit. All right, Japan, the next page is there. Yet, just 1 month later, images of smoke rose from Kenya's parliament as popular protest against the government turned violent. Over that, people were killed, many at the hands of police, prompting the US Embassy and other diplomatic missions to express shock and call for restraint. I won't go through the whole, of course, entire article, but I just want to maybe just go where also we have this particular headlining there. Was Ruto a false messiah with much expectation? But for ordinary Kenyan citizens, the concrete benefits of a deepened partnership with the United States have been harder to discern. Little of what the United States appreciated about Ruto had much bearing on the campaign promises he had made to Kenyans themselves. Domestically, the biggest story to emerge from the state visit was a scandal about the Emirati private jet that carried the president and his entourage to Washington. The so-called Hustler Nation that supported Ruto expected the economic relief that his campaign had promised. Instead, Kenya's unsustainably high interest payments on government debt led Ruto's government to seek new revenue by hiking up existing taxes and adding new ones. As President Ruto began to speak the language of austerity as he worked to appease the International Monetary Fund, which conditioned badly needed funding on commitments to raise revenue and cut subsidies. At the same time, graft among the country's elites appeared to continue unchecked. So you can read the rest of the details there, but I just want to pick up with you, Dr. Hassan Kanenje, on this America's dilemma in Kenya right now. Did Washington err in embracing Ruto? And now do they need to double down on helping him succeed?
Yeah, first of all, I'll start with the first story you mentioned about Biden quitting the race.
Biden quitting, yes, okay.
Yes, since it's global today. And say in the best interest of the party and the country, but it's actually in the best interest of Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. In 2000, October 20th, what was called the showdown in Motown between Mike Tyson and Andrew Golata. Mm-hmm. Andrew Golata quit mid-fight because he didn't want to be humiliated at the end of being knocked out cold. And so Joe Biden has been saved from himself. He was going probably to lose miserably and go out as a one-term president who could not make it through the debate. Now, did Washington err on embracing Kenya? I don't think Washington erred. They had to make their calculations based on the realities of the world. In a region they have a strategic interest in, and where Kenya has by far been the only stable functioning democracy and successfully had negotiated its election in a very peaceful way. And so I think there was a rush of adrenaline in Washington to be able to continue what Kenya was already doing. And so with the new presidency, I think there was hope in Washington, of course, that they're going to work with Kenya. Washington will still going to remain very close to Kenya, irrespective of what is happening. Now, I think the question mostly is, with the impending elections and perhaps potential new presidency in the United States, are we still going to maintain the same kind of relations that we've had before? Mm-hmm. And two, are the politics in the United States Congress and the United States public going to support the kind of engagement in Kenya in the light of everything that is happening in the country and in the region?
Mm-hmm. All right, so you've not really answered also, okay, the America's dilemma as well. I think you
Yeah,
answered.
I just answered. They were saying,
I just realized. So, okay, let's hear from Peter Kagwanja.
Yes, I think these are interesting times in the U.S. And I have said this before. It was Francis Fukuyama in 2014 who published his book, Political Power and Political Decay.
Yes.
And he went on to trace what is the trouble with America. I think without saying so, his main argument was America's greatest enemies will not come from outside America, they will come from within America. It is the enemy within. And he was identifying political decay as the enemy within. So there's a semblance between America and Kenya, because our enemy is not outside this country. And that's why we are turning the military on ourselves, because the military is normally supposed to be dealing with people, things outside. We are turning our military because our problem is internal and it is decay of social order. So those are the two similarities. Did they err in picking Ruto? I don't think so, because
in embracing Ruto.
I mean, it is about the interest, the way they interpreted their interest. And if you read their national strategy 2002, Ruto fitted in like a glove, somebody who is going to be pro-America and is going to be, anti-China and anti-Russia in a certain way, and therefore this is the point. And the campaign rhetoric of the time really fitted that particular script. But now, thereafter, I think the Americans are not known to do very deep analysis of any society where they have interest. Because if they did, Boya would not have been assassinated. They would have known how to shield Boya, Tom Boya here. So they don't do deep analysis. And often, when they are doing those, they bring a certain genre of ambassadors who are supposed to reflect their mood in that particular moment. So we had an ambassador who was of enthusiastic, perhaps too enthusiastic to the point that somebody talked about her being the best, Kenya's best foreign minister ever in our times, which is ironical, basically. It reflects that America leading Kenya wrong. But it is coming from their own decay. Because had Biden being a very critical leader of the situation in Kenya, he would actually have helped Kenya to get out of that situation. Obama was in love with Kenya as his land of the fatherland, and I don't think he invested very much in understanding the direction that the country was taking. And therefore, a faulty, decaying, or rotting America here comes to embrace a Kenya rather than help Kenya get out of its own mire. Look at what they are saying now.
So how will they help him succeed? Because it seems Michelle Gavin, she's very particular that it was a mistake to embrace Ruto.
Yes.
But now America should help him succeed in this quagmire that he's in. First of all, do you think he's suffering from the Messiah syndrome?
No.
Is Ruto suffering from the Messiah syndrome?
No. We have said this before, and I want to repeat myself here. Nobody wants to get Ruto out of his position. This is my position, and I strongly believe in it until 10th of August, 2027. Because Kenya need political stability. We don't want disorder. You are unhappy with Ruto, we made a choice. He's our president until 2027. After that, you have a clean check. You'll be given a vote yourself.
Thank you.
To decide whether he is. So Michelle is not over-enthusiastic. She's simply saying we need to, and I'm leading her, we need to have order now. And Kenya need to go through a transitional order. What the Gen Zs are doing must not lead to the disintegration of our country. That's clear.
Right, let's hear from Dr. Keno.
From the outset, Diba, America did not make any mistake by choosing Ruto and Kenya. Look at the time. The Eastern African region generally, and the Horn of Africa, the expert is here, is exuding some level of geopolitics that not speak very well with the American foreign policy in the region. In our neighbor here in Tanzania, Magufuli had rebelled, openly against the West. When Suluhu came in, she thought she would provide a solution, which is Suluhu in Kiswahili, to this, but she hasn't done very well. She has got an image of fairly weak president. Across the border in Uganda, the friendship between Kampala and Washington had gotten messed up because the strongmen of Africa, Museveni, had gone overboard, including the mistreatment of LGBT and all that. So they had dropped him. Across the border from Uganda to Rwanda, Kagame had fallen out of favor with the West generally, and they were beginning to deal with him. South Sudan is crumbling. DRC, there are problems. Khartoum, Sudan, there are problems. The only country that remained in the region that had a semblance of peace and political transition that made some meaning was Nairobi, was Kenya. So they grabbed Ruto because of that relative stability. And then also they were increasingly losing it to the Chinese in the region, particularly in terms of joining the country's development and working with the local elites. The Americans were actually fast losing to the Chinese. If you remember, Trump's foreign secretary who came via Addis Ababa, he directly told us, just throw off the Chinese off the cliff, don't touch. It was much more open. So Biden did not sort of have a choice, but to impress Ruto because it played very well to their national interests.
Thank you. Right, where we are just supposed to be winding up, even as we're winding up, just briefly, when we have Trump now coming in as president, I think also that will be working out in favor of Uganda and the resumption of the aid financially, the AGOA that was taken off because of the stand on LGBTQ. You just heard him saying that now there will not be confusion of bathrooms.
Yes.
Yeah, so that or which team you're playing with, whether you're a boy or a girl. This transgender,
it's very clear. It's quite clear.
Or a gender reassignment that is happening right now, and a lot of confusion that is happening in the public domain, especially in America right now, that we have these new philosophies of new ageism really catching up with also the global south as well. Let's get to your closing remarks, Dr. Hassan Kuninja.
I would like to ask fellow Kenyans and Africans not to be so scared about the potential Trump presidency. Actually, what history has proved in the last 3-4 decades is Republican presidents have actually been better for Africa's growth than Democratic presidents. So whatever happens, we know while Trump is transaction, remember during his first term we were able to enter into a number of transactions in Washington, D.C., so we should not exactly be so scared. But insofar as what is happening also in the country is concerned, it is true, and I do share Professor Kagwanja's sentiments. If we have to stick by the Constitution, we should expect that the president is going to serve out his full term. What that means is, as we seek to reach some settlement, we need to have that understanding that how can we be able to negotiate in ways we can still be able to have a country and live together. And yes, we have genuine demands, we have genuine grievances, but they must be done within constitutional framework, understanding that there's no other Kenya. We only have one.
Right, thank you. Peter Kagwanja.
I think there isn't going to be much change from Trump to Biden. I mean, from Biden to Trump in regard to the implications for Kenya. Obviously, Trump is a very strong anti-China president, so that's going to go well with him. But we are likely to benefit more from Trump than from